There we go.
You don't think they're gonna move, do you?
Gun rhymes with fun for a reason, stranger.
Treasure one. Butterfly lamp.
Hello, stranger. Welcome. What can I interest you in? I'll hand this over when you've got the space. A wise choice. I know. I say that a lot, but I mean it. Don't get yourself killed now.
Let's examine it. It's pretty decent. 3-round burst, trigger fire with a Matilda handle. It has a high ammunition rate, precision's pretty high, rate of fire is pretty high. we're gonna go get the other treasure now. Now that you know, I've unlocked it.
We're here.
Yeah, once I collect enough of these treasures, I'm just happy we got rid of part of the problem. Oh. Ironic. There we go. I just put it wrong. Alright, we got Justice Statue. Is there anywhere else where we had that trigger at? I don't know. Because it might be coming up later. Because that is something else. So it might be over here somewhere. I just haven't hit it yet. Which I'm fine by. I'm fine by. Alright, so now we know we got that done. Quickly power up. Since they're right here.
Ooh, what you buy?
Justice Statue. Butterfly lamp. Oh my god, I got the crown. I got the crown. Oh, I need jewels for that. So I think I got like 2. So I got the little guys. You know what? Tune up. We can. No, not tune up.
Next time.
So much money. It'd be so much more if I could just.
Buy something. Welcome. Thank you. Pleasant trap. Welcome. Suit yourself, stranger.
Alright. Oh, hold on.
Hello, stranger. Welcome. Ooh, what you buy? A deal well struck.
So I can already fire that up.
Molding a weapon to suit your specific needs.
I do use the handgun a lot more. And I can do double upgrades, so we'll do this.
Are you? I've got a selection of good things
While we're at it.
Better to be over prepared. Come back
Yes.
anytime.
We'll do magazine size next. For right now, we need to get going. Oh, hold on. I think there is another place I need to go check out. Let's check it. Oh, no. It's coming up. It's the Nightery. Let's go over and get this next area done.
No problem.
Don't even start with me, old Gramps. I am kind of laughing, though. Alright. High five the wall, touchdown, eat grass. Alright. Now I gotta go in this section of the area.
Got it.
Good night. I forgot.
The sandwich felt right.
Alright, it looks like this is where we're probably going to eventually turn it in. Yep.
Leon,
Not great, huh? Honestly, I would have peed myself. I'm not gonna lie, I would have frankly just pissed myself on that situation.
clock.
Is there not a typewriter here? Not exactly a dead end.
A hidden staircase? It must lead to a secret room or something.
There we go. Bird.
Yeah. You gotta get out?
No, I was just letting him know I'm about done here.
What's this slow for?
Well, you're about to find out in a minute, babe. Oh. And if anyone wonders, I actually have a phrase for when I say stuff like that. If I call you a babe, I consider like actually calling you like a baby. But I'm at this point, I'm done playing. I'm gonna take a break, get off, and do a few other things. But yeah, to break it down, if I call you honey, it's not always related to like somebody I love, like my sweetheart over there. I call certain people honey, like, oh honey, yeah, it's alright kind of thing, or sweetheart, or like for example, if I use anything sweet, as long as it doesn't, I don't say sweetheart, like in a particular term, like God, sorry, I'm tired. So it's like there's sweetheart, sweetie, and you know, I got different phrases depending on what they are used for. It depends on who I'm talking to. Like, there's some I exclusively use for, like, the people I'm dating. There's others I'll just use for, like, if you're younger than me or certain backgrounds. Like, I'm weird, I know. But, so I just, like, when I said babe, it's pretty much like Ashley Graham compared to me in terms. She's, like, a baby. Like, in having to play as her in this one as a college student, she's still technically like a baby. When I was in like technically by her age in the game, I'd probably be like 10, maybe 12 years old before she was born in this version. In the other version, she was actually technically a little bit younger, depending on which version of the game you got, because they did change ages on characters depending on background. Like the Japanese lore on some characters, for example, Sherry Birkin, she was technically in that game supposed to be roughly between 8 to 12 years old. In some of the newer game, in the English translation, she was like 14, example. But her average age, she was supposed to be between 8 to 10 years old. It was basically, she was an elementary student that happened to be experimented on in the process of these games. She's also part of the original Alice projects. Anybody can hit me on that, they can try, but I've studied the lore very hard on these games. I'm a big fan of Resident Evil, to the point that some of the games they've actually straight up said they don't know why they're canon or how they fit in the canon lore, but most of them are canon. For example, anybody that looks at the Outbreak files, the Survivor files, and believe it or not, Operation Raccoon City are not canon. One of the 3 arcade games is canon, actually. I forget which one it was, but it had a unique name. But the simple arcade where you had 2 players in it, that one was not. I think the one that was canon was like originally made for the Wii. And yeah, so I'm like representing her because she is to me a kid, even though I'm playing a college level student. It's like I can kind of sympathize with some of the things she's gone through. Like, I would honestly put yourself in her shoes. Like, you're just a young, fresh college student, and that's actually where her lore's from. She technically got kidnapped from a college. They waited until she left, the safety of the guards and stuff. She basically ended up, being grabbed on the way leaving the college, technically. Like, they waited until she was, like, getting ready to go, and then they picked her up. They kidnapped her, and then they take her all the way over here. Now, the original story, actually, believe it or not, took place near Spain. But they were talking about rewriting the whole story and the origin. I mean, they did that to a few of the games already, technically. But and that's why I literally said, there's like, just like how you have Star Wars, you have the Lucasfilms Legends, and then you have, like, you break it down to the Disney versions, which are two different areas. Like some are canon, some are not. So technically, by the legends, all the Disney movies are not canon. But then you go off the Disney movies, and a lot of stuff from the original stuff is not canon, which is funny because 3 of his films are technically canon. 6 of his films are not canon. And that's just going off of Star Wars, so that's a whole completely different ballgame. And I'm not a stupidly big fan of them like I am this. But Sherry Birkins, for example, was one of the meanest characters in history because she was part of the Alice projects. Anybody that doesn't know what an Alice project is, I'll break it down very simple. She's one of the original 5 to the Nemesis. So Alice Projects was originally what it was called because Patient Zero, her name was Alice. But her original name wasn't Alice. It just, one of the people in the science lab basically got it in their heads that they're going to do a project, like Adam and Eve type thing, Alice, Wonderland. I mean, there's a reference between all of it, but he's like, named it after the main person whose name did start with an A, but they were not called Alice. That was her code name. They originally gave her a number, but over time they started naming them like they were pets. Her original name, I don't remember, they didn't really reference the last name very well, but her original name was Alex. A-L-E-X. She was one of the original patients, because there were originally 5 top patients. These are the only survivors. Technically, all the other ones died. Now, let me break it again, a small sample here. The official patients on the roster, though, was 4. There's a reason why I say that, because Sherry Birkins was technically not supposed to be a patient. So when they did the roster, and they were like, oh yeah, we got these people, they were kind of like, the best way to explain it is like, most of these people didn't even know they were like bums. They were people that had no life, they had no friends. Basically, you're like looking for quick cash. A lot of them actually in records were like drug addicts or people that had a problem or had a mental breakdown. So what they do is they put a flyer out, people that needed help, they could come here and basically test trials. That was like most of the patients. There are a few that just signed up for, like, think like you want to go donate plasma, they're going to give you, blood. And then you get money for it, So it turned out that's what the situation was, is most of the patients in the story archives were people that were picked up to do testing on through like an actual lab experiment that was legalized by paper. Now what they didn't know was most of these people would be turned into monsters, failed projects. It all started to save a little girl. Now, people are like, some people are not good at the lore, thinking because I'm talking about Sherry Birkins, that's the little girl. Wrong. So, Alex was the patient 0 who was originally tempted on. There was another one, which was, God, just give me a minute. I actually can't remember her name. But she was the little girl that the founder had, which was dying from cancer. So he was doing this project originally to save people and cure for cancer. That's actually what it was founded off of in the original game. Umbrella Corp was an actual good organization. It just so happens that a fraction of it became greedy, corrupted, manipulative. They went into more like a spec op type thing. That's why if you actually pay attention to the games and people break down and don't go, oh, Umbrella Corp is all this great evil. That's why I was like joke, because fandom, I joined the Umbrella Corp because I was like, I like their plot twist. But Sherry Birkins just happened to be an extra added onto that list because her father, she was also technically still with a terminal illness. He didn't do it by the books. Like, technically they didn't really do things legally, but they did do them by a booklet. Like, these are the people on the list. She happened to be basically tested on outside of their jurisdiction. That's why technically in Resident Evil 1, no matter which version spice the game, even technically in so we'll just break it down. They're all the same. Operation Raccoon City, Resident Evil 1, and technically if you play Resident Evil 0, you find a little bit more about it. But most of it's in 1, Operation Raccoon City, and 2, where you find out that she was not supposed to be the guinea pig. He took his lab work home to save his daughter's life, and hence why they wanted to capture her and kill his whole family. He did something that the bad corporation part of Umbrella didn't like, so they thought that they can use her genetics And that will come into detail later because they wanted to use her because she, technically, before all the other ones, Nemesis and all that, she was the first project that actually succeeded. That was not a failure. That's why it was so important to get her, because she had something in her genetics. And that got foiled, basically, Claire Redfield, Leon, and Jill did not assist with helping them, They kind of, honestly, I don't agree with it, but Umbrella Corp was going to capture her, or test on her, she's going to be a guinea pig, they were going to displace her genetics. She would have been a successful cure for cancer in the game. I'm not going to lie, but if the good ones had it, that's what it would have been used for. They'd most likely be using her for a coded structure to make artificial intelligence using the genetics of the girl to help control the weapons. I mean, honestly, it's not a good thing to say either way, but the good guys ends up getting her, and no offense if you want to break down the lore, BSAA, people know them as the good guys, actually were rotten to the core. They would treat anybody that was considered the program, like Sherry Birkins, Rose from the village. They would treat anybody like them as if they were corrupted and tainted, and they put them through psychological torture, not physical, but mostly psychological. They would technically do like a lot of prodding. They would poke them with needles, take a lot of blood. They would test their endurance. That was actually canon from RE6. So it's like her going through physical and mental health through lab experiments, treating her like a lab rat, was actually a thing. Well, unlike, Umbrella Corp, when they got those soldiers, they'd push them to the point of breaking. They would actually test how they could survive. There was actually attempts where they would take people to test their pain tolerance, and they would use a flamethrower and light their hand up. Hence, funny thing is that's where the Crimson Heads came from originally. They originally were a mutation that was not supposed to be there. They found it out on a few test subjects, and then they altered the virus to enhance it. It's supposed to be like a stimulation and a steroid boost. So they basically gave it to them, which would cause the mind to break down and cause a Fury effect. Those that play D&D think of you're playing this super genetic creature, and then all of a sudden it goes into barbarian rage type thing, if that's the best way to explain it. And that caused a lot of issues. Well, there was actually, for the top 5 though, Nemesis was supposed to be the tank, and he started off, and believe it or not, Mr. X is also in that same program, but he's not in that category. He's later. These are the top 5 were prototypes, technically, if you will. But Mr. X and the Tyrants, all of those are in the same program. So they had breaking down the programs. Nemesis was Project Zero for the Tyrant program. Alice was basically supposed to be the super soldier, speed, assassin, get in, kill, get out, nobody sees it coming kind of thing. Able to make disguises, looks mostly normal. And then they had a few others, one of them, for example, turned into bugs. It could control creepy crawlies. They originally designed it for super bug warfare, so they could send a bunch in and kill their enemies. But that one 100% flopped. The thing basically got a mind of its own and basically destroyed one of their bases. Hence, Resident Evil 0. That takes place talking about that one. It's just, out of most of these, you can actually find them in the game. Alice, however, she's mostly mentioned, and we're predominantly assuming it's female because, the name, the age, the build, they actually specify that. They do not actually, in the original lore, give her, a gender. It just says Alice. Age, I think she was, 19, 20, something like that. And then it gave, a sub-blood type. But then the rest of her is mystery. All the other characters, they define age, background, why they're in the testing. And so she was considered an anomaly. I'm still wondering if they're going to ever finish that. Because I want to know more about the lore on her. But Weird enough, the movies kind of betrayed her, but I don't think they intended to actually play the character out, but it's funny watching them. But I want to assume, because there's no record of her being deceased, like, that's the other thing, so the Nemesis project with the 5 successes, there originally was recorded multiple pages. The first test subjects in the secret lab, like, I mean, all of them were secretly tested on, don't get me wrong, but the ones that were priority, that had a high success rate, there was, I think, 12 of them. I might be getting my numbers off, 11 and 12. 5 successes, hence case. 4 were on that list, 1 was not. Sherry Birkins, again, was not on that list. She's technically number 13. Lucky, right? Lucky 13. But 4 of them survived, the other 8 died. Most of them were female. After we move on from that, then there was another list of a whole bunch of names internationally, including some in, like, up in, like, China, Japan. Most of them were in, like, the English area. A few were in America. They were, like, divided throughout the world. And so it is actually funny that, like, you know, Nemesis, people didn't realize, and I did, a lot of these things, like, were derived from human test subjects. So the Tyrants were humans that were turned technically into super cyborg types. Nemesis is technically a computer. Once they basically got his biogenetics and the way he formed up, and they were able to, then they put manipulation stuff in him. It's like a lot of technical stuff out of my knowledge, but I get the idea what they were doing. But he's technically a cyborg. He is like super steroid up with a computer program in him. Problem was, what happens when you give a highly intelligent person a supercomputer to control them, and eventually it overrides? So, in technically the original story, by the game archives, not by the movies, Nemesis eventually bucks up and basically turns against everybody and goes... He's the reason a lot of Raccoon City fell so hard as it did, because most of that wasn't him getting directives. Eventually he turned on both sides. And that's, again, baby in the background making noises. That's actually where his famous catchphrase, "Stars," came from. Because technically, even though he broke the computer code, he had no choice but to kill a star member. Now, here's the thing, though. Nemesis had principle. Nemesis was not evil. Everybody's like, oh, but he kills a bunch of people. And he... Look, there were 4 people, just straight up in his face, he left alone. He walked away from. He followed his basic objective. Do not harm innocents. Keyword there. Do not harm those that are unarmed. Keyword there. He basically, if you had two things, you had to have 2 things for him to attack you. A active weapon, and that's why I kind of like thought it was weird that the movie actually portrayed that, but a active weapon in your hand hurting him. That's why the army got shot up. They were stupid. They pulled guns on him, and they're like, we could take this guy down. He destroyed them. In the original lore, he even took on tanks. He won. And if you had a star badge, you might as well strip your clothes off and hide your identity, because the uniform was half of it. He had face recognition, but let's say you actually had your gear on. He wouldn't have to worry about it too much. He's like, there you are. I see your patch. I gotta kill you. So the downside is if you were just even an associate to stars, and it looked like you were an active officer, he would probably gun you down. But other than that, removing those 2 obstacles, weapons and the uniform, and identification that could prove that you're a star member, he literally would leave everybody alone. He'd die hard for them. But later on, his protocol got corrupted, and even though Umbrella Corp was technically on his side, he even killed them. So he went haywire. The nuke was just an accident. Basically, you also learned that from Resident Evil 6, and you learned a little bit of it from Resident Evil 5, believe it or not. They talk about it, but not. 6 actually talks about it more. The nuke drop was a contamination failure. It's basically, they thought they can't control it, so they nuked the whole city. But that wasn't the only city that gets nuked. Down the road, they nuked 2 others. And it proved again and again and again it didn't work. And of course, during Raccoon City, Umbrella Corp did go in and try to help them, but not for evil purposely, people thought. Again, by the time that Raccoon City was overrun, most of Umbrella Corp was good. There were, of course, like let's say 1/3 of the company was bad, yes. But it's kind of like, you saying police officers, all of them are bad, but they're not. It's individuals in the organization that's bad. That's the same way how Umbrella was written and how it was shown. For example, pretty much there were 3 units right now mentioned in the Resident Evil Chronicles and in the Resident Evil games, including, if you actually pay attention to Resident Evil 3, that actually went out to help people, save people, including helping Jill. So when all the crap was going on, like, for example, Carlos and Ken and Samuel, those are all those are all Umbrella operatives. They died saving people. But, everybody gets on the hard, because it's Umbrella Corp, they're evil, no. But it's like, I love the part about the pharmaceutical, the spec defense force. But yeah, there were a bunch of bad apples. You get to play and technically be part of the bad side of it. Well, they're not really bad. They're technically really. It's like telling the army, follow orders. That's basically Operation Raccoon City. You're playing a special force version of them. You could be evil, you could be good, but originally it came down to, here's my directive, what's my orders? And I'll be honest, a lot of them turn around and betray the new version of Umbrella Corp anyways, because they start basically stabbing each other in the back. They're like, why would we work for an organization that's trying to kill me? But I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go, and I hope I was able to give you some lore on it. To be fair, though, my favorite character is Sherry Birkins, straight down. I liked how it was out of all these adults, a little girl in the first games went through the whole series, basically telling him, I'm not afraid type attitude. She's scared. Yeah, she was scared, but she still pushed through. I know, most of the other games, the adults just give up. They're like, just go fuck this, I'm gonna die. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, if I was in Ashley Graham's predicament, I'd be like, I would freeze up. I'd probably pee my pants, I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of scary stuff dealing with what she had to deal with. So, I gotta give her credit, she is strong. And there technically is a sub-lore of her going and joining agencies, and they just never continue with it, but fans, some people are making stuff, mods and art of it, but yeah. I'm hoping one day they might be able to touch up on her lore, because, they were talking about stuff. They could expand a game on her. I get that she's not a main character, but look at it this way. They're making a character technically from a game that's not canon, but the character's canon from, or the character's mother is canon from lore. The news reporter has been through other games. It's just, I think her name is Ashcroft. It's been a while. But she's not canon in the Chronicle files. That's why none of the other characters are in the game. Even including, I think his name is also Ken from the game, the cop. He is also not an actual canon character, officially. They're considered a alternate what-if character canon. Because they straight up said they don't want the game to be canon. That's why you don't see them played throughout other series. You don't see them mentioned. One day, just like how, technically Disney does some of their stuff, Capcom may make them canon in the future, but right now, they're not. Except for Ashcroft. She straight up just became, mainline canon. And I think I'm saying her name right. Yep. Which is why I can't wait for the game to come out. I'm going to pick it up, because I love the fact that I'm able to play as her daughter. But you guys have a wonderful night, and I hope whoever sees this video, and when I do put it on YouTube, will enjoy the lore. And I'm always happy to be, question and ask lore about stuff I love. But this is A.G.Nekochan. I will be getting off. Ciao.